I have a dream.
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 I have a dream too.
Antioch, California, located in northeastern Contra Costa County, is one of the fastest growing and most diverse areas in the state, but its diversity is a more recent development. Its history as a city began in the mid-1800s when immigrants settled along the banks of the San Joaquin River. Thus, Antioch served as a port city for local commerce and industry. Many Europeans made their first settlements just north of Mount Diablo in these foothills. Black Diamond Mines Regional Preserve, just south of Antioch, was the site of 19th century coal mining as well as 20th century sand mining. Well, most of the miners came from the British Isles, including Wales and Ireland, as well as Italy, but we had at least 10 nationalities in the area, mostly European. The coal mines closed around the turn of the 20th century for two main reasons. One reason was that a better quality coal was discovered just north of us in Washington Territory, and the second reason is that petroleum products were discovered. Well, as the mines closed, the miners were out of a job and they had to find work somewhere else. Most of the folks moved their homes down to the nearby communities of Antioch and Pittsburgh to work in the fishing industries, as well as some of the factories that were established along the waterfront. Because the people living in the mining towns were mainly European, Antioch became a predominantly white community.
I think it can truthfully be said that Antioch started out as an all-white community and remained so throughout the majority of the last century, at least through the 1960s. Over the years, Portuguese ranchers and farmers came in surrounding Antioch. German families came in, but there were basically no black families, and Orientals throughout the state of California were drastically discriminated against during the earlier period of Antioch's history. That realtors were not permitted to show black families' houses in Antioch. At one time, not only in Antioch, but across the entire nation, there were deed restrictions. These subdivision tracts had what was called CC&Rs, which is covenants, conditions, and restrictions. And within those restrictions, they said who could or could not live within the subdivision. And you were prohibited from selling your home to anyone that met that criteria. Typically, you were not allowed to sell to Jewish people. You were not allowed to sell to blacks, and you were not allowed to sell to Asians or Chinese.
When the architects of our republic wrote
the magnificent words of the Constitution,
The Declaration of Independence,
they were signing a promissory note
to which every American was to follow her.
So we have come to cash this check. A check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice.
In the 1960s, when you had the marches of Alabama, those marches were just as important to Antioch as they were to Alabama. I can remember being a teenager meeting my first black girl who took a gym class. But as we graduated from the 9th grade to the 10th grade, the superintendent of schools went to her family and suggested that she would be better off attending high school in Pittsburgh, where she could date boys of her own race. I never saw her again. Equal housing came in through the federal government, and state laws for equal housing began to appear of record. It was a very important time for the changes that took place in Antioch. So the 1970s was the opening of the door and the beginning of major changes. The community has continued to evolve and change continuously since the 1970s, to where now I believe that the New English background or the European heritage may even become close to being the minority of town. But now we have students of all races and all backgrounds that are graduating from Antioch High School, and people of all races and all backgrounds that are contributing to our community. Southeast Antioch started to develop as a new United Nations. It brought a new excitement to the community.
Probably the biggest change that I've seen in my lifetime is the diversity of the population. The change I see that we have more African American people in our community than we've ever had before. We have more Asian. Pretty much when I was a young girl, it was Caucasian. There were some Chinese. There was maybe one black family that lived here. For the most part, there were most everybody was an immigrant. I think that on the whole, I think our community has developed in a pretty positive way. I'm sure that there are some people in our area who may still have a problem with that, but I think for the most part, our younger people don't. I think that the change for the better will continue.
Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice
To the solid rock of brotherhood.
we let freedom ring.
When we let it ring from every verse and every helmet.
From every state and every city.
We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children,
Black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles,
Protestants and Catholics.
will be able to join hands
and sings in the wall of the old Negro spiritual.
free at last.
Free at last. Free at last.
Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
There are problems along the way, there are stumbling blocks, and I think that I have faith in the young people. I think that things will evolve as they should.